How important is that side of this when you think about use cases involving the business process, thinking about the business process? How important is that when you're starting to build out the agent? And maybe let me dive a little deeper to say, if I've got this process that I've had in place since 2012, because that's when I started and I like consistency. And so I've held on to it for a very long time. How important is that to leverage an agent looking at this process and maybe even considering to what extent we keep the process in the same steps or rethink it completely based on what an agent can do?
Yeah, I think, well, let's just like talk about, for example, like higher education right now, like we know is facing, like this audience would know better than most around kind of the challenges that the industry is seeing at a whole, like from kind of capacity issues to compliance issues. There are kind of a wealth of challenges. I think what we've seen as a result of that, like working with partners, is we're finding that staff are spending majority of their time kind of doing like operational tasks. Like to your point, like processing documents, answering kind of like routine questions. And I think over time, like the default has been to try different solutions to kind of fix that. Like you might have like workflow automation tools, or like you might create a dashboard to help with that, or like chatbots. I think now that with the evolution of agents, like it is super important to kind of rethink how that process is being done and how an agent can kind of better support that. Because I think over time we have seen workflows being used to drive automation, chatbots, we've seen dashboards, but now it's like, okay, how could that process be more or less kind of done differently? I'll give you one example of that, actually, slightly off topic, but I'll bring it back.
Yeah.
In terms of like, I often see a lot of institutions like processing transcripts, for example, typically quite a manual process that has been like done the same way for a while now in terms of kind of manual GPA recalculation. If you think about an agent, like an agent can actually very much handle that kind of process for you and allow kind of staff members to actually spend time reviewing the application, or kind of talking to the students by obviously like extracting all of that information off the transcript, being able to recalculate it. So I think to answer your question, I think super important to think about the business process. I would often work with partners to encourage them to think about like, how can you do it differently? Or how can you even just like think about what the process is and identify the components that an agent can like very easily do? And therefore you can keep the team member involved in the remaining parts.
So I'm going to add to the answer.
Perfect.
I'm going to extend the answer. So yes to everything you just said, and then to think about how long it took that staff member to do that.
Yeah.
And how long it will take AI to do that, to understand what other value does that mean that we can offer and contribute back to the student? Because we might accelerate that by weeks. What may have taken 2 or 3 weeks for me to get to is now being done potentially in seconds with that review. Even if I still have a human looking at it, the amount of time it takes is now dramatically there. And so having a stack of folders this high of ones I've reviewed, now it's this tall, and I can knock them out pretty quickly. So, when we think about that process, let's acknowledge that amount of savings and time will be there, and think about what trickle down changes that need to happen. What else can we do in terms of communication, or thinking that the next step that a student might take or that a reviewer might take is a week from now or 2 weeks from now. Well, now it's going to be in a day.